PC Perspective videos and podcasts are sponsored by Be Quiet and the all-new PureBase 500DX case. Featuring 3 PureWings 240mm fans, ARGB lighting, and USB 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C connectivity, the PureBase 500DX is optimized for maximum airflow with a sleek yet elegant design. Available now in black and white. Hey everyone, welcome to the PC Perspective podcast. This is episode 588, being recorded Wednesday, May 27th, 2020. I'm Jim Tanis.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Brett Mossberg. I'm wearing my Walt Mossberg mask tonight. Jim, I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh, get ready for some hot takes.
Well, if anything goes wrong out of my mouth or I say something that may be a little bit controversial, I'm just going to blame it on the Walt Mossberg mask.
That's fine by me. Yeah. All right. No worries. Sebastian just couldn't make it tonight. He'll be back next week, so check in then. And he also had a new review up at the site this week on some HyperX keycaps, so check that out, and I'm sure he'll talk about that when he's back next week. And also, just a word of warning: despite appearances, I am not actually in Jordan's basement. I'm in an attic. The air conditioner doesn't work. It was 85 degrees today, and that makes it, when I checked the thermometer a couple minutes ago, it's about 94, 95 degrees inside right now. I can't run the fan blowing on me because it would really mess up the audio. So I'm actually quite legitimately
toasty,
dizzy and a little lightheaded. So we're going to try to get through this. If I pass out, the other guys will just carry on. So I apologize if I'm all red and sweaty and lose my train of thought here, but we're glad you could join us. We record these shows live most weeks, either Wednesday or Thursday, and you can watch the show live at pcper.com/live. Join in the chat there. You can also check out the Discord. We've got a Discord community. There's an invite link to that Discord in all of our podcast show notes at pcper.com/podcasts. And see, I'm already losing my train of thought. And then if you'd like to support us and support what we do here, you can head over to patreon.com/pcper. And if you become a new patron or increase your pledge, we'll either read your name or you can send a message to read. And we've got a few of those that came in this week. First of all, big thanks to new patrons Bill McMullen, Jorge Castro, and Jeff Fouchard. And Jeff also sent a message. He said, "Where is PC Per Retro?" We've talked about it a few times. I made an intro for it one boring weekend afternoon. But yeah, we haven't really done anything with that yet. But I know Sebastian, he's got a ton of retro stuff. I know Josh and Jeremy and Brett are all into that. So we'll try to get something going there at some point soon, some fun retro stuff. But until then, you can just hang out with all of us old sweaty guys right here at pcper.com/live. All right. Before we get into the news, I know it's a Wednesday and Josh always has a burger on a Wednesday. So Josh, what'd you have today?
It was the pastrami burger. So it's 2 quarter-pound patties covered with pastrami, Swiss cheese, and horseradish mustard on the bun. It's good stuff. It's a lot of meat.
Yeah, wow. And where'd you have that?
It's called Born in a Barn.
You've had that. You've eaten there a lot, haven't you?
Once or twice.
Yeah.
So it's a must.
Fancy fries though.
I'm on first name basis with everybody. So.
Oh, nice.
But no fancy fries, considering how big that burger was.
No, I had a salad.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to fill up.
Responsible.
No. Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into the news this week. We've got a couple stories to start off with. So let's say you're AMD and you're doing pretty well. You've released a couple generations of some really high-performing, good value processors. Your biggest rival, Intel, is kind of stuck on a process node and they can't seem to get off of. And then Intel comes out and releases their latest processors, which surprisingly do perform pretty well thermally. They're able to hit some really high frequencies. And despite being yet another iteration of the same old, they've done it about as well as you can expect. So what do you do if you're AMD and your next processors aren't scheduled till the fall? Well, how about a refresh? A Matisse refresh is the rumor. Now, these are all rumors, but some pretty reliable sources have come out talking about this. The The rumor is that we're going to see an updated XT version. So that can get confusing when you have the graphic side of things as well with the XT, but an updated edition of 3 of their probably best selling or, best marketed processors, the 3600, 3800, and 3900. So what we'd see going forward is you have your Ryzen 9 3900, and you'd go to a Ryzen 9 3900X, and you'd go to a Ryzen 9 3900 XT. Now, across the board, with all 3 of these new rumored processors, you're getting base and boost frequency improvements. They all maintain the same core and thread counts as their counterparts, I guess you'd call it. But in the case of the Ryzen 9 3900 XT, you'd take the base frequency goes from 3.8 to 4.1, and the boost goes from 4.6 to 4.8. Let's see. Actually, let me, I think I can show this. Here we go. I brought it in our show notes for everybody. So here's the chart we're looking at. So you're looking at, on the 3800 XT, it goes from a 3.9 base to a 4.2, and a 4.5 to a 4.7 boost. And for the 3600 series, you go from a 3.8 to a 4 base, and a 4.4 to a 4.7. So we don't know pricing yet. We know that these have all had some pretty good sales and price drops, the plain old X series, that is, since they were released. But I don't know. What do you guys think about this likely strategy from AMD?
Kind of makes me question that they're going to have anything ready or new in the fall. I mean, why refresh them right now when they'd be kind of on the shelves for about 3 to 4 months? So kind of wonder if we won't see Zen 3 until holiday season anyway.
Yeah, the last rumor I heard about a release window for Zen 3 was end of September. So if that's looking like it could get pushed back, that would be one reason. Another interesting interpretation of this that I saw was that we know AMD has promised a not insignificant improvement in IPC for Zen 3. The presence of these processors and the early benchmarks, again, this is all leaked stuff, so it's hard to know if these are accurate. They're looking impressive if they're true. Wouldn't that indicate that AMD is even more confident in the increase for Zen 3 because they don't want to cannibalize future Zen 3 sales by putting these out into the market? But if Zen 3 is going to be even better, even more of a leap over what these offer, that would give a reason for these to exist in this middle part of the year here until they're ready.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, the pricing is already fairly tight. So if you're going to add in the next generation, and so these are going to be the benchmark prices, that they have to be higher than. And so we already know that 3900X, you thankfully right now you can find it for under $450, but it should be, more or less $500. So the 3900 XT is going to be more than that, which means that anything you're thinking about releasing, be it end of September or December, which I agree with Josh, seems more likely, you've set the lowest price you can possibly charge. Intel's already dropping their prices, and this could sort of choke out a lot of your possible consumers just because they can't really afford it.
Hey, from a base and boost perspective, I just want to say that if you can ever call like rumors out there to be, more or less relevant, it just depends. But there are some other rumors out there that are saying base is likely to remain the same. So your chart may be a little bit enthusiastic, and that boost is going to be roughly plus 100. Because there's some perhaps rumored 3D Mark benchmarks out there that are showing not a whole lot of increase, and other benchmarks that are showing a little bit more. So it's kind of all over the map. It's a little bit tough to call. So we more really have to just kind of pontificate on what's the reasoning behind this. Jim, I think yours is probably closer, regarding getting it out there to make a reason to not obsolete your existing parts, and stick it to Intel a little bit more. They're going to be a lot closer to especially the 10900, not necessarily the K1, but a lot closer to the 10900 in performance. So grain of salt with the boost and base.
Yeah, that is true. I think I pulled these off of Tom Apisak's tweet is where I sourced these numbers from. But yeah, as Brett said, that none of this is for sure yet. So that it could not be as high as what we're showing here. What do you guys think about the XT name, though? Isn't that a little weird?
Very graphics card.
Great graphics cards. That's just what I was going to say.
Yeah. One kind of last thing about comparing about Zen 3 as well is that it kind of shows that AMD has improved kind of their design methodology, and the 7 nanometer probably has gotten some tweaks as well from both AMD and TSMC, that we have seen a pretty significant jump in these usable clock speeds. And so it bodes well for Zen 3 that at least it could hit possibly the same type clock speeds, and you're looking at 15 to 20% increase in IPC. And so that's when you put all those things together, it's going to be very competitive in the marketplace. Let's say, especially if you compare a 3900X to the 1090 from Intel. Those two are very much neck and neck, and now you've got a next generation part that's due out in the next, I would say, 6 months, and yeah, it's looking good for AMD and their prospects over this next year.
And of course,
it helps them reset their price floor. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say this opens up the room for the return of Intel Extreme Edition, right? Intel can counter with a new Extreme Edition's processor.
Sure.
I don't know. They're kind of flogging their current chips.
That's true. There isn't much room left.
How much more can they squeeze out of that?
Yeah, I think that what the die size of the 10900 is something like 206 millimeter square, which for Intel is huge for a consumer, because they're usually in between 110, 130 at the max. And now they've had to, keep jacking that up because they're adding transistors. They're going to the plus, and that adds space. I mean, they're not as dense a process because they have to adjust things to get better power consumption and clock speeds out of these. And so it inflates the die size as well. And so having a 206 millimeter square unit it's something that Intel hasn't done in a long time in the consumer space, and their hand really has been forced by AMD.
I just saw pictures of this, actually, because who else but DeBauer actually delidded them. And between 87 and 10.9, I think the increase in die size was like 20%. They didn't make it any wider, physically, but it's longer underneath the heat spreader.
All right. Any other thoughts on this topic?
It's all fake news.
It's great that we have competition for a change. Yep. I like refreshes. We haven't had like CPU refreshes like this where, it's kind of a generational thing. Like, the Ryzen 2000 series didn't have any kind of, mid-life refresh. I mean, it kind of was a refresh all of the 1000 series of Ryzen. But I guess the closest thing we can come with a refresh was the 1600 AF. And, that was kind of a bare, not in a box processor type one-off thing. And where am I going with this? I don't know. But it's fun to have a refresh that after a year. And the 3600 XT looks pretty sharp.
Yeah, price performance and gaming should be really good with that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, assuming that these numbers are what we will end up seeing. No word on timetable yet, or when AMD might officially reveal any of this stuff. But as Josh was saying, I didn't, when Zen 2 launched and they were having those problems hitting those base or those boost frequencies, remember, and the controversy there and the aggressive power settings, and even Intel trying to capitalize on that by falsely saying, "Oh, your Ryzen processor is going to burn out. You better be careful." I didn't think there'd be much headroom to do something like this, but as Josh said, improving that manufacturing process and refining this architecture allowed them to have this opportunity. Again, if this is what we end up seeing, who knows? Okay, well, let's switch away from the x86 side of things, and let's talk about ARM. Josh, you covered the ARM Tech. Was it ARM Tech Day?
Yeah. Usually they hold these in either Austin or somewhere in England, depending on. But it's always a spring late spring type event where they show off their latest generation of stuff, and usually they've now got a cadence in both. Well, not only both, but in all three of their major products: the CPUs, the Cortex, the GPUs, the Mali, and now the gosh, I can't remember the machine learning. It's the N series, NEO, something like that. Anyway, so they've released all three of those things, and I was able to cover the two CPUs. So the A78 looks like it's probably going to be the last kind of generation of this particular design. The A76 was introduced. A77 was built off that, and the A78 is kind of the final optimization of this architecture. They've done a tremendous amount in there. They went through the whole thing with a fine-tooth comb. They really took a look at all the units. They looked at the structures. They kind of did a comparison of return on ROI of what provides the most performance at reasonable power consumption levels and die space sizing. And they chuck things that weren't kind of hitting that, and increase the things that had a better result in their calculations and their simulations. And they've done quite a few things here. So the A78, it has the option to go with only 32K of L1 cache. Now, the other ones previously all had 64, and there's an option that you can use 64, but they've been able to do enough on the front end, the cores, the memory controllers, cache controllers, all of that, so that they could have the L1 cache, which saves a lot of die space, it saves a lot of power, but still not only retain the same performance, but actually improve upon it. So as you see as ISO comparison, that would be no difference in the process technology used. This is just the base kind of performance and power consumption. And you can see that, it's a smaller die size. It's lower power consumption, but they were still able to increase by performance by 7% in a variety of tasks that they kind of all mix and match together to get that 7%. When you start talking about process nodes, these will be coming out in 5 nanometer as compared to the A77, which is kind of the top of the line 7 nanometer part right now. They're looking at 20 to 23% increase in overall performance. And when you start, then, like if you clock an A78 at 5 nanometer at the same speed as an A77 at 7 nanometer, you're going to get essentially the same performance, a little bit better, but you're going to have 50% power consumption. I mean, it's just nuts how they've been able to squeeze as much performance out of this architecture as they have. And I believe this is the Austin Design Center did all this. I mean, it's really hard to kind of go through everything that they've done. Like they had another integer mole unit support. It's still like a 4-wide structure. But micro ops or macro ops or MOPS, whatever you want to call it, they've increased that ability. So those are all pre-decoded instructions that are sent directly to the core for execution. And again, the caches have the tremendous amount of work in there to improve efficiency. And I mean, the one thing that constantly was mentioned was, memory access and cache access. That those are two areas where they could increase performance a lot, but they also look to decrease how much they're actually kind of used, especially main memory, because that's not only does it induce a lot of latency, but it takes more power to do that. And so they've done all kinds of stuff at the front end. Branch prediction is much better. Yeah, it's just efficiency improvements everywhere. And optimizing the structures that will give the best return on investment and getting rid of the stuff that just didn't cut it. And so again, this is probably the last generation from this Austin design group. It's going to go back to Sophia, the French design group, and they'll have a brand new architecture that they'll be introducing to us. Who knows what they're going to call it? Probably a 80 something. But anyway, they announced another program, which is the cortex-x custom design, which basically they work with a partner very early on, and they really kind of just supercharge this latest generation of the Cortex. So it's essentially they took the A78 and they made it bigger. It probably consumes 30% more power, but it's much larger. It has like 5 decode instructions per cycle and 8 MOPs. They've got 4 by 128-bit SIMD floating point units. They've doubled the cache sizes. They've doubled the bandwidth available to go into cache. There was nothing that was not touched by these Cortex guys, and they're working with partners, and they have people who will be introducing the Cortex X1, which is a high performance ARM processor that won't be in a phone. Probably it's going to be in kind of laptop replacement, and the performance looks to be pretty impressive. I mean, it does consume more power, but the performance is going to be up there. And yeah, you can look at the slide that Jim's on, and I mean, they've pretty much doubled damn near everything. So it's a really interesting program. I think we're going to see that expand in the future because people like Apple have their own design group, and they put out ARM-based architectures that really lead the industry in terms of power and performance, and they do that by themselves. Now, other people can't afford to hire all these CPU engineers, and so they have to work with ARM to be able to bring a higher performance version of these parts out. So I'll be talking about the G78 and the machine learning portion probably next week. I'm working on the rest of that article and write-up, and hope to have that soon. So yeah, ARM is staying really consistent with their product releases. They're staying aggressive. They've kind of got a monopoly. I mean, if you think about it, in the cell phone world, but they don't act like it. I mean, they kind of act like the underdog. I mean, they're still gunning after Intel and AMD and anybody else. I mean, they're frenemies with Apple and Qualcomm. It's kind of odd that they see them not only as partners, but also a little bit as rivals. But
yeah, I thought that was strange too.
Stuff. Yeah. But I mean, they're frenemies that is still paying ARM a lot of money for these architectural licenses. So it's kind of win-win-win for ARM. But again, they're staying aggressive with the CPU. They're staying really aggressive with the GPUs. GPUs, 50% of all cell phones shipped had Mali in them, and 85% of all smart TVs were based on Mali. So that is 1 billion plus chips shipped with that technology a year, and it's only growing. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see ARM as they keep going on and keep showing this cadence and being able to leverage not only advanced process nodes, but also really taking design up to the next level. I mean, they're licensing these designs out. And I mean, these guys get the RTLs and whatnot, and they still got to do a lot of work themselves to get it all running and choose the process that they're doing. But at the basic design level that ARM's doing, I mean, it's impressive what they have achieved. And essentially, they're looking at IPC and kind of the Intel i5 range with these latest products.
Yeah, in case people don't know, I mean, this is how the Snapdragon is assembled with a cluster of these cores, previous generation stuff anyways. And I can easily see high power, low power cores assembled with X1, 78 series type CPUs to build the thing everybody thinks Apple's going to build next. Maybe it won't all be Apple derived. Maybe this X1 part is actually better than whatever it is they're doing. I'm sorry. That was my Mossberg mask talking. Forget what I said.
Well, I mean, the market of the ARM powered laptops that would have traditionally been x86 powered, that's the huge growth, or the future looking growth segment is there. And the thing holding it back thus far has been performance, because especially if you're non-native, if you have to do any type of emulation, it just hasn't been good. So seeing the continued improvement there and seeing ARM open up to the custom addressing custom needs for higher performance systems like that is, they're, as Josh said, they're ARM every year. They're well run, and they've got a good plan, and they seem to execute on it pretty consistently. But okay, anything else on ARM this week at least?
Not anything that hits my head.
Okay, all right. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Then we're going to hear from our sponsor. We'll be right back. Our sponsor this week is ExpressVPN. Regular listeners know that we've talked about ExpressVPN before, and you know that it's the VPN service that I've personally used and trusted for over 3 years. And when I first looked into ExpressVPN, my primary need was protection while traveling, so that I knew I would always have a fast, reliable, secure connection no matter where I was. But most of us probably aren't traveling much these days, and we're working from home, and ExpressVPN is still a great tool to have there as well. Whether you're a freelancer in charge of your own online security, or you're working at home away from the resources of your company's IT department, ExpressVPN ensures that your online activity will be safe and secure. You don't need a corporate network or expensive networking gear to have a fast, encrypted connection, even at home. Just get ExpressVPN, one of the easiest ways to secure your internet data on all of your devices. So don't wait, don't take the risk. Check out the VPN service that I personally use and trust, and by using our link, get an extra 3 months of service for free. Just head to expressvpn.com/PCPer. Again, that's expressvpn.com/PCPer for an extra 3 months free. Thanks to ExpressVPN for their support of the PC Perspective podcast. Okay, we're back. Let's continue on with the show here. So here's a neat story. Sebastian wrote this up for us. NVIDIA sent out a press release on it earlier, but it's another really cool use of AI. And in this case, NVIDIA took their, what they call the GameGAN or GameGAN, and that stands for GAN being Generative Adversarial Network. And they took their AI and they basically showed it a bunch of Pac-Man, 50,000 sessions of Pac-Man, the classic, Pac-Man game. And then it was able to build its own version of the game, following the rules and the layout and the graphics, but without a game engine. So they didn't build a clone of Pac-Man. They didn't, program the engine. They showed this AI, here's a bunch of this gameplay, now recreate it for us. And it worked. And there's this short clip here you can see. It's not perfect, obviously, but it's the layout of a classic game. It's working the way you'd expect it to work, where eating the fruit makes the ghosts vulnerable, and then the Pac-Man can eat them. And they did this all, again, without programming anything. And so the implication there is, for developers going forward, you can take, without having to manually program everything, you can have it help you create levels or frameworks and just other ideas that can go into game development or any type of other engine-based environment you'd be creating. But I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
Ultimate screen scraping.
Well, yeah, in a way.
It kind of is.
But it's
pretty cool. It's kind of scary.
This is probably of all of the terrifying implications of AI that we've seen, this is probably not anywhere near the worst I've seen.
A little bit towards the benign end. No one's going to launch the nuclear codes with Pac-Man, is what you're saying. Let it into your life.
Well, it's not.
How about a nice game of tic-tac-toe?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Shall we play a game?
That's pretty impressive. Oh, yeah. I'm sure a lot of people know that reference, but yeah. So you can check out, NVIDIA's got a web page set up for the press release on this, and they go through the more technical side of how it accomplished it. But another interesting use case for this that doesn't involve deepfakes and terrible dystopian futures. Right. Powered by RTX. All right. Next up, we'll talk briefly about AMD here. They just had their Ryzen 4000 mobile launch a few months ago, and this is Zen 2 mobile, because they're out of sync with the desktop. So Ryzen 4000 for mobile is still Zen 2, and it was a pretty successful launch. Everything we saw looked really good. Performance, efficiency, everything was great. But the AMD still has the problem where they're just not in that many notebooks. It's hard to find an AMD based notebook compared to Intel. And one of the companies that's been pretty bad about offering AMD support has been Dell. And thankfully, as Jeremy found for us here, they're changing that this generation. So they've come out with a pretty interesting all AMD powered gaming laptop. Tell us about this, Jeremy.
It's looking pretty nice. I wish they'd sent better pictures of it because it's kind of hard to show off just how sexy it looks. It's got the blowers in the back. So the idea is that what they've done is they're pairing one of their H series. So generally that will translate to you can pick a Ryzen 5 4600H or a Ryzen 9 4900H. And they've paired that with an RX 5600M. The fun thing is that with AMD Smart Shift, because they built all of the silicon, they're able to dynamically pass power back and forth between them so that as soon as your GPU needs more boost because whatever you're doing isn't really CPU bound, it will happily take some power away from the CPU to provide a little bit of extra boost to the GPU, and vice versa, as well as saving battery life when you're not using either of them. It's very happy to put them into lower power states and then immediately come back without having to worry about, two different companies' architectures trying to translate and talk to each other, as we've seen on many other laptops. What's really nice is that usually when this has happened in the past, they will offer a single AMD powered model. That's it. This one, you've got some serious choices. So at launch, they'll all be 1080p displays, but at launch, you'll be able to pick up a normal 60 hertz display or 144 hertz FreeSync display. So if you feel like getting a little bit better performance and actually gaming on the machine itself, you're going to be able to do that, and it's going to be really nice. Wait a couple of months, and you should see an additional 120 hertz model coming out. So they're planning on continual releases. It means that you're now going to be able to look at Dell as a source for AMD, not just as a consumer, which, what consumer wouldn't want this, but as a business to say, yeah, we need an order of, 1,000 laptops over the course of the year. Well, would you like to try AMD on some of them? And now it's going to be an actual possible choice for you, which is, really, really freaking nice to see. When we'll see how well the Smart Shift, like their benchmarks did show some really nice stuff. They played around with 3 games, which are Battlefield 5 and Division 2, which obviously were chosen because they were good demonstrations of the Smart Shift. But on average, you were seeing about a 14% boost over similar hardware, but not paired with Smart Shift turned on. If what we're going to get is what it looks like, so a 4.4 gigahertz processor, 144 hertz FreeSync display, and the RX 5600M, that is one real kick-ass G5 15SE. I'm looking forward to seeing this thing.
All right, so let's continue on here. I apologize if it feels like we're going really quick, but it is so hot in here. I pulled this Diet Snapple out of the fridge before we started, and it is now hot. It is like well above what you would consider room temperature, and I can't last much longer here. So,
Jim, that's a gas-fired hot water heater you're sitting in front of, by the way.
It's because you relieved yourself in that bottle, and it's just room temperature now.
Wait,
no, why not
it's cooling down.
Body temperature.
You got to go mic off and full blast on the fan in between. You got to do that.
Yeah, I might have to. And Josh, I urinate in the Fresca bottles. Fresca, not Snapple.
Oh, don't drink out of the Fresca bottles. Yes. In other words.
Exactly.
Well, that's just sound advice.
Quick tip.
All right. So Windows, the latest version of Windows is here. It's officially named the Windows 10 May 2020 update. The build is 2004 or 2004, I guess, is more appropriate because it's supposed to mean the year and it's supposed to be the month, but they obviously missed April there. But it's here. It's been released. Microsoft has a blog post out on it. It's not going to be pushed automatically just yet, but it's going to be available for the seekers, as they call them, meaning if you go into settings and manually try to check for an update, as long as your system is otherwise compatible, it will deliver it to you there. So, check it out. Obviously, we will all rush to immediately update to the latest version. I know Sebastian just dives headfirst into new Windows builds without any testing. But as he did leave us before he had to jump out this evening, he left us a note. Of course, it's a Windows version, so there's known issues, and we'll have a link to the Windows 2004 issues page, so you can make sure that it's going to work for you this new edition. Any concerns from the system administrators in the group here?
We're still pushing
Security.
1903, mate.
Oh, really?
Oh.
Okay. Well,
Yeah. We're just starting to test the in-between one because it takes them this long to unfuck it enough that you can depend on it in a business sense.
Today, I clicked on Edge, and it came up with a dialogue saying, "Do you really want to upgrade to the new Edge, the Chromium-based one?" And 2 clicks later, I've got the brand new Edge.
well, aren't you lucky?
Mhm.
We're gonna
No,
have
are we?
That's the internet button for a lot of people. When they want the internet,
Yeah.
that's the button they push.
Yeah, now it's changed.
So now Microsoft is starting to push that, and I guess it's probably good because Chromium's pretty decent.
Yeah.
It doesn't like certain mobile Intel i5s.
Mm.
You launch it from a clean install or image, and you get a black screen.
Try turning off hardware acceleration. Seriously.
That will be part of it, but you also have to wait for it to notice that you've got this bug because you've got this specific type of processor, and it will push an update which fixes it. But it's not a set amount of time, so it's like, hi, here's your brand new laptop. Don't push the internet button for a little while.
Well, I mean, you could just put Firefox on there for him. Put it in the.
We've got Chrome because Chrome doesn't care. Chrome's
Okay.
fine.
Here, this is a funny anecdote about people and the internet button. Is that there's been a number of people who have called their corporate support services about working from home, and suddenly they're not being able to make their laptops that they've taken from work actually function at home. They would press the internet button and nothing would happen. So they were calling their support services and going like, "Hey, I've got a problem. Why isn't this working?" Come to find out, the corporate Wi-Fi does not follow people to their homes.
Mhm.
And this was something that was actually difficult to diagnose initially. But, a lot of people, once this was sort of socialized amongst the IT support staff, it's become more of a top tier question for people working from home, going like, yeah, what's your Wi-Fi network you're trying to connect to? Yeah, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
True
But I
story,
don't want to use
unfortunately.
my one at home because my kids are using
Press the
it.
internet
It's really
button.
slow.
The internet button is not working.
Oh, well, the nightmares of work from home.
Yes.
Mm.
Oh, well, come on. The literal breakdowns people had because the color of the E changed.
Ooh.
I haven't had any
It-
personal experience there, but I'm sure
It
that
was
was
a light
rough.
blue. It's a dark blue now, so it's not the same thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think still in 2004, the original Internet Explorer is still buried in there somewhere.
Oh, wait, it's
Isn't
still
it?
there.
Yeah. So you can just pull that out and continue have your payroll processor continue on her merry way with her old.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
IE11 is still bundled in there, so yeah.
HR is going to be using it forever because that's their back end that they have to have IE to work with. So
Yeah,
Yes.
thanks, Deltec.
Yeah. And hell, getting them from 9 to 11 was hard enough. I don't want to fight again.
Whatever happened to Silverlight? Those were the days. Anyway, let's continue on. Another update. This time, it's somewhat related to Windows 10, but it's a new release of NVIDIA's GeForce Game Ready drivers. This is 446.14 is the version number, and some big. As Scott wrote this up for us, so the big games that this is supposed to support are Valorant, which is the new free-to-play first-person shooter from Riot Games. Riot, of course, known for League of Legends, and this is their first entry into the FPS genre. Also supporting Minecraft Dungeons, Disintegration, and Crucible. Another interesting fix in this driver is that it's finally addressing the support, or allegedly addressing, I haven't just tested this yet, but there's been a long-standing issue with multi-displays that aren't at the same frequency. So if you've got like your primary gaming monitor that's 144 hertz, and then you've got one or two side monitors that are older that are just 60. If they're mismatched like that, it can cause issues with stuttering, frequency of your graphics card, things like that. And this is supposed to have fixed that. It also, people in the chat are sending me links to Silverlight. So,
well, quick download it.
Right. It also has some fixes for SLI. So if you're still hanging out with an SLI setup, there's some improvements there. And this is also, of course, the first update certified for Windows 2004, Windows 10 version 2004. So that's the connection there to Windows. So run out and grab the new NVIDIA drivers. Make sure you're up to date, and especially if you're playing one of those new games that it's optimized for.
Hey, on the
I want to
microstutter
find
thing,
a PAL monitor and see if it can deal with it. One NTSC, one PAL. Come on, do it.
Yeah.
On the microstutter thing, I've actually noticed that running your multi-sync application, like if you have a 6075 on one and like a multi-sync running on the other, if you run the one requiring multi-sync in windowed mode, I'm noticing that reduces the stutter quite a bit rather than full screen.
Yeah.
Try it. It might be app dependent. I've just noticed that it actually can help the micro stuttering.
Well, hopefully this new driver just fixes it entirely.
Yep,
then
that would be better.
Can just move on. Okay, so here's a fun story Jeremy found for us. There was some storytelling over, I think it started on a Reddit thread, and then the Register picked it up, and then Jeremy found it for us. But it's some Windows programmer history here from a very important developer, a former developer from Microsoft. Tell us, what's the story here?
So Dave Plummer is a name you have likely heard if you follow this industry at all. He's famous for instance, porting Space Cadet so that it could run on Windows and just about anything else it felt like, hardware-wise anyways. But he sort of reminisced back to when he first started, back in 93-ish, when he first started working on the MS-DOS programs and integration of Microsoft, this relatively small little company at the time. And he did some, interesting things. He was one of the people behind Double Space, which was a way of making a DOS machine able to utilize more disk space more effectively with some interesting tricks that honestly I don't remember because that was a really long time ago. You wouldn't think of it, but he is the reason he integrated the whole Explorer GUI into zip files so that you were able to open them up and see the files within them without having to unzip them. You've already infected yourself, but that's not the point. The point is you can see what you were trying to download. But he did something that we all love him for to this day. He invented Task Manager. He figured out a way to create this incredibly complex thing into a very easy to interface with GUI that you can kill programs with. You can start programs with if your Explorer shell is already dead. You can, if you like playing with it, you can set higher affinities, give your processes more privileges, all sorts of fun things. In fact, it was done on a completely different engine than Explorer was, so that even if your Explorer was completely and totally dead and all you're seeing is a black window, you could still get Task Manager up. And if Task Manager had happened to crash, Control-Shift-Escape would tell it to check to see if it was running, and if it wasn't, would spawn a new process. Again, independent. It was right down in the very base of the system, so it was wonderful. Until the modern age, which it's drawn the exact same way as your desktop is, so if you've lost your desktop or you've got a non-responding program, you ain't going to be able to get at your Task Manager. This happened after he left. It has nothing to do with that particular decision. So it was just, a fun little thing. It's worth following the links to, read about all of this ancient history about the systems that you use. And, running through the really old Windows through WinNT 4.0, which was one of the bigger ones that he worked on before he started to move on to other things. So it's really worth taking a look at if you've got any interest in the history and you don't know it, or if you just want to see how much you've forgotten over the years.
All right, so that's the story from Dave Plummer. We'll have a link to that coverage and his original Reddit post that started all this in the show notes. Any thoughts?
We love Task Mangler.
Task Mangler. Yeah.
I like to run Linux top, H top, and just mentally plot the graphs. That's what I usually do.
Well,
It works out well.
Okay, let's wrap up our last story here, and it's just a quick mention for a couple of game-related things. Now, this first one, it's unfortunately on a very limited time basis here. I think it expires May 28th.
Tomorrow.
That's tomorrow, as we're recording this, at 11 a.m. Eastern, and that's Civ 6. It's part of the Epic Game Store's rotating free game giveaway. You can run over and grab it. It's normally priced at $60 US. So obviously that's one to get if you don't have it and are otherwise using the Epic platform. So, but like I said, it's unfortunately just very limited time. So grab it. If you're watching live, grab it. Or if you're one of those first people to grab the podcast on demand tomorrow morning, head over and grab that before it expires. And the second story is that there's a summer sale going on over at GOG. Jeremy wrote this up for us. Any highlights? Any of the games that you saw there that are worth picking up?
There is a fair amount of games on some really good discounts. But what caught my eye were the demos. They so the brand new System Shock remake, not the 10-cent System Shock 3. Maybe continuation, but the remake one, Desperados 3, which you can see up there as well. Carnage, or I think it was called, which is sort of a reverse horror game where you are the horror eating people, sort of like the shark game that came out recently. Looks pretty. From what I've seen, the combat is a little bit meh, but the atmosphere is just exactly as they describe it, as you remember it was, not as it actually was. So, but there's a bunch of Carrion is the other one. Destroy All Humans is just silliness. If you haven't played it, here's a chance to, get a couple hours gameplay out of it. See if you like it or not, and then buy it at, steep discounts.
Jeremy, there's a very serious problem with the System Shock 3 remake. It looks like a lot of the lead developers, lead program managers, and a lot of the team members have been let go, unfortunately, and it may never see the light of day, or if it
this
does,
is why
it's going to be
10-cent jumped in. Which means, it's going to be
I didn't know that.
All of crap. Yeah, that was late last week.
Let
it die at that point. Like that's just,
I can't talk about it. It's too soon. I can't talk about it.
But the remake's going well.
All right, so that's the GOG summer sale. That's not nearly as time sensitive as the Civ 6 giveaway. You've got till June 15th to head over there and grab those. Then there's
I missed the GTA 5 free giveaway. I mean, everybody's talking about it, but I thought it was like 2 days after it actually stopped, and so I was like, "Oh, finally, Epic! I'll just log in there." It's like
you haven't robbed a bank in like a week.
I still have never really played a GTA game because I don't like being a bad guy.
Yeah, I mean,
you can obey the speed limit.
Yeah,
I just can't do it. I don't know.
You don't have to be that bad. You can play the character. It's only partially evil, I guess.
You can't fulfill the quests though, or if you want to call them that.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to think back to GTA 5. How many missions required you to do something truly horrific?
Like bank robbery.
Well, again, but you don't have to shoot the guy.
Beat somebody up and
you could set them on fire. You're right.
But those are bad people. Those are bad people.
Yes.
All right. Well, there's the Steam's. This isn't a Steam sale. It's a Steam event. They're calling it the Spring Cleaning Event, and of course we joke about it. It's everyone jokes about your huge backlog of games in your Steam library. Yeah. So what they're doing here is through tomorrow, 10 a.m. Pacific, though I guess you got a little more time. You can log in and you go in and you'll click on these rooms, and they'll recommend a game from your library based on the theme of the room. And if you play the game, you get a token and a badge. And so it's a fun way, if you're into the Steam tokens and XP stuff, it's a way to revisit your library, play some games you may have missed that you actually already owned, and get some fun stuff there as well. So check that out. And then finally, let's talk about Edge again. In the Chromium Edge, obviously in straight up Chrome, in Google Chrome, there's that fun little dinosaur game that plays when there's no internet connection. Well, Microsoft wanted to get in on that as well. So they've launched this game or added this game called the Surf game, and it's sort of like Ski Free. It's like an updated Ski Free except water instead of a mountain. And so you can play around. It's got pretty decent graphics for a tiny little browser
Hey, I can
game.
be a furry.
You could be a furry. You can customize your character. It's got controller support, so you can hook up your
Little
Xbox
abominable
Elite.
snowman.
No, it's
Great
that octopus thing that comes and gets you, the big octopus instead of the snowman. But so that's something. If you're on, you have to update to the latest version of the Chromium-based Edge browser, and then that'll be available there if you go to Edge ://surf. I think how you get to that, but we'll have a link to that as well in the show notes. But okay, let's get to our picks of the week here. Let's see, Josh, you're up first.
I am.
You are.
This is amazing. We really need to turn the heat up in your room more often.
Uh-huh.
And get the podcast down to 1 hour. This is awesome.
I'm legitimately lightheaded. I hope I'm still being coherent.
But let me
You're skipping
recite
every
my
third
favorite
word. It's fine.
soliloquy. And anyway, I've been having lawnmower issues, and I've been looking for carbureted cleaning kits, and where you get new gaskets, new needle seat, and all that stuff. And they're like $12-13. You can get a brand new carburetor for your lawnmower for $15. It's like $3 more than the refurb kit. And so you get all of the stuff in there that you need, and you just slap it in there. You've got a fully, essentially brand new working lawnmower, because the carburetor is the thing that usually breaks down first.
Oh yeah.
All the seals kind of get whacked, and you got water in the bowl, and can't get all the fuel you need to the engine. But otherwise, replace the spark plug, replace your air filter, change the oil, which I don't want to talk about me changing the oil in my lawnmower that I got 20 years ago.
So is this the first oil change?
Maybe.
Yeah. It probably had it coming.
Yeah, well, I mean, you just add oil, cleans it all out.
True.
Yeah.
Hey, does that new carb come with the bad running at one end of the RPM spectrum, like it won't idle or it won't rev all the way up? Does it come with that, or does that kind of settle in after a period of time?
I think that just settles in, because you've got the idle screw in there, so you're good.
Yeah, so you can keep twisting that till it stops working. Super.
Exactly.
I love that.
All right, so if you need a carburetor, we got one for you. Jeremy, what's your pick?
Someone was screwing around with an e-paper tablet, and it's something he's been doing for a while, because he figured out how to install better writable memory into it. But now that he's got the ability to write to the memory and create, whatever he feels like, he installed a full desktop version of Linux on it. He's still working on the documentation, so keep an eye out. But he's already documented how he installed the micro SD in it, so you can at least get started. But yeah, for those of the guys that love the e-ink, give it a second, or give it a chance. Keep an eye on it. It's amusing.
This is a Ken Addison approved pick, yep. I'm sure. Okay, and then Brett, let's finish up with you here.
All right, well, I've got a new metric for your rig is LEET. And that your gaming means everything to you. So if you're not running one of these power supplies, then you probably don't mean it. This is a power supply that has multiple power supplies in it in an ATX form factor. So this is their twin 700 watt version, hot swappable, very server rackish. So I'm very familiar with this sort of thing. If you scroll down, you'll see some of the software that you can get on this. Keep going.
It's disappointing that the whole Z-Bit meme is now not popular, because dog.
I guess
I heard you like power supplies.
But check this out. You can monitor. This has software to monitor the whole shebang: 3.3 volt rail, 5 volt rail, 12 volt rail, overall wattage. If you give it your cost per watt, it'll figure out how much you're burning up in dollars as you GTA 5 your way through your latest bank. It tells you your fan RPMs. It is actually fairly cool. And if you look at the next link that I sent you, Same price as your regular 400 watt EVGA power supply, only $519.
Oh,
I'm not being facetious. There aren't any power supplies available, but there are some generous people out there who will sell you a standard Corsair or EVGA type power supply nowadays for only $400 or $500 or more, because they're unobtainium at the moment. I can't imagine why. So yeah, it's priced right.
all right. So yeah.
Yeah, Lee played with the 500 watt version.
Nice.
Did a full review of it.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's my new leap metric. You're not, and you're like, yeah, okay. Do you have like an uninterruptible, hot stoppable power supply? Then you don't really care about your gaming.
So if you've got the budget, it's the FSP Twins power supply, and in particular the 700 watt version that Brett found for us. I don't have a pick because I can't think straight, but all those other picks will be in the show notes. And that wraps our show for this week. Does anyone have any final thoughts? Anything they'd like to discuss? No? All right, I legitimately don't feel well.
Into my computer.
Get out
that probably is
No. Sorry that
Get out of that basement.
Josh is happy, but for the rest of you who I know like our longer shows, apologize if this felt a little rushed, but it is still over 90 degrees in here, and I am sweaty and dizzy, and so we've got to cut this off and say goodnight. But we'll be back next week with Sebastian, and hopefully I'll have my air conditioner fixed by then. So to everyone else out there, I hope you stay cool, be well, and we'll see you next week.